Today, we are gonna be making arguably the most important part of a great pizza, which is a great crust, or in our case, a great dough, since we're gonna be making homemade pizza dough. Everyone loves pizza. Well, not everyone, but the people you should have in your lives love pizza. If they don't like pizza, there's probably a reason for it, and you don't need to find out. You don't need to hang out with those people. But every pizza is better when it's a fresh homemade pizza crust. It can be very intimidating to a lot of people to make homemade pizza crust, but I'm going to show you today a flawless way to make sure that your pizza crust comes out every single time properly. The yeast is gonna activate, the dough is gonna rise. It's gonna be super, super simple compared to what most people think, and it's gonna really wow the people that you make pizza for. So without delaying any further, let's get into making some delicious homemade pizza dough. A lot of people think making homemade pizza dough can be very intimidating, which it can be, but today I'm going to show you a foolproof way to make your own homemade pizza dough that's guaranteed to work every single time. You're not gonna kill the yeast. The yeast is not gonna not activate, or your dough isn't gonna rise. It's gonna come out fine every time for you. So to start things off, what you're going to need is 1.5 cups of 110 to 120 degree water. And if you're balling out like me, you'll have an electric kettle. If you don't have an electric kettle, you can just use stovetop and warm up the water a little bit. Generally, it's about warm to touch if you don't have a thermometer. Otherwise, go invest in a thermometer. They're relatively cheap. But you're gonna need 1.5 cups of 110 to 120 degree water to activate the yeast. All right, now that we have our water, 1.5 cups, 110 to 120 degrees, we're going to first add the yeast. And then you're gonna take your sugar, so 1 teaspoon of sugar, a normal pack of yeast, which is usually 2¼ teaspoons. So do yeast first, and then I sprinkle the sugar on top. You're gonna wanna stir this together and let it sit 10 to 15 minutes, and you'll see the yeast activate. You'll see it, the bubbles form on top. It starts looking frothy, almost like a beer that has too much head on it. So 10-15 minutes, and while we're doing that, or while we're waiting for that, we're gonna start to get the flour ready for the dough. All right, so we've stirred our yeast, water, sugar solution, waiting 10 to 15 minutes for that to start rising. Now we're gonna get our flour mix started here. So what you're going to need is 3.5 to 4 cups of flour. Now when you're doing your flour, you don't want to pack in the flour. You really, I guess I use a smaller cup size, so this is 1/4 cup. I use that and I pour it in to the 1 cup mixture here. So I'm gonna get 3.5 cups, 3.5 to 4 cups. Depends on how much dough I'm gonna need, really, for me, on how much, if I'm gonna go more 3.5 or more 4. Either way, there's a lot of different factors that go into if you're gonna need 3.5 or 4. I'm gonna go, with this recipe, I'm actually gonna go 4. I'd much rather have a little bit too much dough and I have to add a little bit more water than not enough dough. So I'm gonna do 4 cups here. Like I said, don't pack it down, just pour it into the cup itself, kind of shake it around a little bit, and then this is gonna be 4 here. So there's 4 cups there of flour. I'm gonna leave this out because I might need a little bit more. I'm gonna need more to sprinkle out on the counter. Along with the 4 cups of flour, I have some salt, 2 teaspoons, and then I have my olive oil, which is 2 tablespoons. So pour that all together, and then we're gonna continue to wait. You might be able to see this, you might not, but it's starting to get foamy on top already. It's kind of looking like a gross beer, but you're getting that head on top. That's usually an indication, a good indication, that the yeast is active. It's starting to do its job. Really, at this point, I'd be comfortable pouring it in. So I'm gonna pour this in here, and then we're gonna wanna mix this all together. I don't know, a little dry until you actually start working it. We might need to add a little bit more water here, but it's all right, we'll just keep kind of mixing it together. At a certain point, I'll just pour it on the counter and start messing with it. Yeah, I think I'll just throw it on the counter and start kind of kneading it by hand and putting it together, adding a little bit more water if needed, but we'll see where we're at. So I've kneaded the dough for probably about 15 minutes now. You really want to work it nice. It really helps break everything down. That way when you allow it to rest, it's gonna rise up nicely. So when you finish kneading it, you kind of just roll it around to form a nice ball. You pinch off the bottoms there, kind of twist it around to make a nice little ball here. So you're gonna take some olive oil, get a little bowl. So you put maybe another couple tablespoons of oil in there, give or take, you know, kind of eyeball it. You're gonna take your dough ball, put it in there, swirl it around, cover it in olive oil. And what we're gonna do now is I have some water that's about 140, maybe 150 degrees. And I'm gonna show you a little tip that helps with the rising process and helps your dough really come to life. So I have my 140 degree water. I have my ball of dough covered in olive oil, ready to rest. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take a small pan here, little pot, and I'm going to add water to it. And what this is going to do is while this dough is resting, this heat is going to be hitting the bottom of the bowl, warming the dough up, allowing that yeast to really come alive. You don't want to fill it so full that the water is touching the bottom of the bowl, and you don't want the water super hot. If you do, you can almost kind of start baking the dough, and you don't want that. And then I'm gonna put a fresh, clean towel over top of it, just because we're gonna let it sit now for an hour. So I've been waiting about an hour now, letting the dough rise. Looks like got a nice rise. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually just punch it down a little bit. Gonna bring it out, set that to the side for now, but I'm gonna bring this out, and what I want to do is cut it in half, because this dough is actually gonna make two portions of it. And then you're gonna do that same technique where you kind of roll it into itself to make a nice ball, and then I'm gonna pinch off the bottom and twist it. So now we have 2 balls of dough ready to go into the fridge. I know you might be thinking, well, wait, aren't we gonna cook with them? Aren't we gonna do something with them? I generally let my dough rest at least a day overnight. That way you can get the rise on it. And what it's also gonna do is it's gonna allow the gluten to kind of start forming, so you can get that stretchiness of the dough that you want. If you try to do it too quickly, the dough is going to tear rather than stretch. So you could probably let it sit out if you wanted to for, if you're planning on making it at night, make it early in the day, let it sit out all day. I generally let mine sit in the fridge for at least a day. Gonna get this prepped into the fridge so we can let it chill overnight. One more thing, before we actually put them in the fridge, I put a little bit more olive oil on the top, just so it doesn't dry out while it's sitting in the fridge. And then you're actually gonna wanna cover it with some plastic wrap. But wrap it up, throw it in the fridge, and then we're going to roll out the dough tomorrow and finish the rest of our pizza. And that is gonna do it for me today. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this video. It means a lot to me. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up. That's gonna help us grow more organically, which is always appreciated. Check me out on any of my social medias. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at The Green Bay Guy, or you can add me on Snapchat, The GB Guy. Lastly, if you need any inspiration on how to use this pizza dough, check out either of the videos that popped up, the suggested videos that popped up there. Until next time, thanks for watching, and go Pack Go.